First of all, I want to say, obviously, shout out to everyone who organized and participated in the No Kings Day celebrations, we'll call them. I do think that it's important that people go out there and really, truly represent our community, show love, show solidarity, and really speak to the injustices that are happening in this world. And so, for those of you that were there, I really appreciate all of you being out there and supporting in your own way. Today's session of Conchas y Café is going to be led by Abraham, our beloved master teaching artist. And for anyone joining in on whether that be our Instagram Live or on YouTube Live, you are, of course, welcome to drop in your comments, drop in your questions in the chat feature of either platform. And for those who are joining in here on Zoom itself, I very much appreciate you being here for tonight's session. In the chat, I am right now uploading the handout for those of you that weren't able to download it a moment ago. So you can download it and follow along. The PDF version of the handout that's in the chat right now will go on our website alongside the video recording of today's session. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. I know in reviewing Abraham's lesson for today, I was feeling kind of nostalgic. So I want to definitely thank Abraham for taking me back to my childhood. And
we'll get there.
Yeah. And so, yeah, with that, I will pass it off to the man of the hour. Bienvenido a todos.
Good night. Buckle up. Let's begin. Hola, ¿cómo estamos? Buenas noches. Bienvenidos a Conchas y Café. Usually, like for people who have been here for a long time, I always start with English, they go to Spanish. But tonight we're gonna do just a little switcheroo because the material that I learned I learned it from Spanish. So I wanted to kind of pay tribute to that by starting with Spanish, but don't worry, we're gonna go to English right away. So English will be followed by, And como les decía, ahora normalmente comenzamos en inglés la clase, pero ahora voy a comenzar en español, después en inglés, porque pues es como conocí el material que vamos a discutir el día de hoy. Y without further ado, let's start with the quote of the day. Sin muchos bla bla bla, cha cha cha, vamos a comenzar la lectura de hoy con esta cita. Las flores retoñan y mueren. Las estrellas brillan, pero eventualmente se apagan. Todo muere, la tierra, el sol y hasta algo tan inmenso como este universo no está excluido. Comparado con eso, la vida de un hombre es tan efímera como un abrir y cerrar de ojos. En ese instante un hombre nace, en ese corto instante un hombre crece, se ríe, llora, please suffers, regocija, lamenta, odia y ama a otros. Todo es transitorio y luego todos caemos en el sueño eterno llamado muerte. Palabras de Shaka de Virgo y voy a decir quién es luego. So in English is flowers bud and die, stars shine but eventually fade. Everything dies, the earth, the sun, and even something as immense as the universe is not excluded. Compared to that, man's life is so ephemeral, like the blink of an eye. In that moment, a man is born. In that short moment, a man grows, laughs, cries, fights, suffers, rejoices, laments, hates, and loves others. Everything is transitory. And then we all fall into the eternal sleep called death. Words by Shaka of Virgo. And what do you guys think about this quote? ¿Qué piensan acerca de esta cita?
It's pretty heavy, tell you that much. This is Dr. Rosie. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
It really reminds us, right away, the first thing that came to my mind is that life is short, and we really need to grasp today for today and forget the mañana.
Yes, thank you. Anybody else? ¿Alguien más que quiera hablar sobre esta cita?
In the chat, River put, es la verdad. It's on the nose.
Thank you.
And I'm going to ask Luis because see, I wanted to hear his take on this one. ¿Qué piensas acerca de esto, Luis?
Pues me hizo pensar en que todo es un ciclo. You know, we do really live like in a full cycle every day. You know, el sol sale, el sol muere, la luna sale, la luna muere. You know, like our ancestors thought of it in that way, and death is only a part of life. You know, y no es algo que significa el final, ¿verdad? La muerte, pero es simplemente un parte del ciclo. That's kind of the way that I looked at it.
Interesting. Thank you. Anybody else? ¿Alguien más que quiera hablar sobre esta cita?
Grisel wrote in the chat, me recordó el día de los muertos.
Interesting.
You know what, Abraham? I remember in 2005 when my sweet papa passed away of a heart attack. I remember leaving the hospital and I looked around, but everything kept going. Nothing stopped. He stopped. His heart stopped, and I wanted everything to stop because I it's like I couldn't breathe, but everything just kept going, and I remember the green light, the cars going and red lights and honking and people walking by, but because nobody knew what had happened to my dad but me, you know, in that instance of my, you know, because I was by myself with my dad. But it's like you can't stop anything from of these things that you mentioned. You know, it just keeps going on in its own path.
Yeah, this is Mary. I liked it better in Spanish for some reason.
Yes.
It was a lot more poetic, or a lot more, I felt more emotion from it. And yeah, it's interesting because we can go on and not think about death, or we could, you know, we forget about it. And it's interesting because I sent out an emoji of death before the class started. The other was muertos.
You were sensing it.
That was funny. But yeah, it's a beautiful way to remember how everything is not permanent. It's that we are all, that impermanence is the way, we have a hard time with change. You know, we want things to remain the same as a whole, I think. At least I do. I have a hard time with change. It's a thought-provoking, yeah.
Thank you, Mary. And Luz, I see your hands up.
Well, I like the word ephemeral, that man's life is ephemeral. To me, that translates into something intangible or just hard to wrap your head around. So I just feel like that every day, that I'm kind of grasping or trying to wrap my head around it, but never really can, because it is, like Mary said, constantly changing. So it's hard to even grasp, you know, death. And then birth. I saw my granddaughter born last year, and it's just so amazing, the energy around birth. And then I've also been around death, and it's also very fascinating just to feel that draw. That same energy is just as powerful with birth and with death. So yeah, there's no escaping it.
Definitely. Well, for me, I really love this quote because it kind of takes us to the same monument, or like this huge thing as a cosmic or the universe, right? and put us into that context, saying we are the same. Regardless if you're small, big, we all have that ending, that kind of ephemeral part of it. It might take longer, but in sense of like living a life, regardless if you're a star, an animal, a turtle, a man, a mosquito, we all have a life, right? And I like that many of you guys went into like, let's worth like let's worth make it worth it, right? It kind of gave us that sense of it's something precious, right? So I really love that. Anybody else wants to say before something we move on?
Well, I just wanted to acknowledge our chat here. Grisel ya se nos está adelantando. Obviously recognizing where the quote came from. But River did include an additional comment. Dice, ephemeral is like something that exists but doesn't exist. Never the same, but the sameness in ephemerality. So in a way, it's a comforting word to think about something always being even in endings, constant endings.
Thank you, guys. And we'll move on, okay? Thank you for your comments. And let's continue this journey. Un poco de historia para ponerlos al día. Quick catch up, because it's a lot of story behind what I want to really talk about. So bear with me. This is the story behind the story, I guess. So, un malvado sacerdote llamado Saga de Gemini intenta matar a la pequeña Atena para hacerse con el control del santuario. Un heroico caballero se sacrifica para salvar y confiar la niña a un bondadoso benefactor. An evil priest named Saga of Gemini tries to kill the baby Athena to take control of the sanctuary. A hero knight sacrifices himself to save her, entrusting the girl to a kind benefactor. And that's the benefactor as the warrior who saved the little baby over here. Okay. El benefactor envía a 10 huérfanos a diferentes partes del mundo para que se entrenen con caballeros y se ganen su armadura. The benefactor sends 10 orphans to different parts of the world to train as knights and earn their armor. And it's interesting because in the manga, apparently, I never read the manga, I just saw the anime. And the manga, all of them are kids from the guy. So I'm like, oh, well, that guy's a little bit of horror. Yeah. Anyways, let's get back to the story. So, cuando la resucitada Atena es alcanzada por una flecha, los caballeros deben correr contra el tiempo para ascender por las 12 casas del santuario, cada una custodiada por un poderoso caballero de oro, y llegar hasta el sacerdote en lo alto de la torre del reloj para salvarla. When the resurrected Athena is shot with an arrow, the knights must race against time to ascend the sanctuary 12 houses, each guarded by powerful gold knights. Each of the and reach the priest at the top of the clock tower to save her. So here is the Athena, the baby girl who grew up later and got attacked. Here are the knights, and it's the evil guys, or whatever you want to call them. Again, it's a quick get into it. Enemigos poderosos, entre ellos los caballeros dorados que sirven al falso sacerdote, se interponen en su camino. Powerful enemies, including the golden knights who serve the false priest, stand in their way. And here are the golden knights. And here's the guy who we attribute the quote at the beginning. This one over here, Shaka de Virgo. Here you go. Okay. El destino del mundo depende de la capacidad de los caballeros para superar sus limitaciones físicas y mentales, dominar su energía cósmica y salir victoriosos. The fate of the world hinges on the knight's ability to overcome their physical and mental limitations, master the cosmic energy, and emerge victorious. So, el anime se centra en 5 caballeros empoderados por constelaciones y vistiendo armaduras místicas. Pero hoy nos centraremos en uno de ellos, Yoga. The anime focuses on 5 knights empowered by constellations and wearing mystical armor. But today we are focusing in one of them, which is Yoga, the one in the picture. Any questions so far? ¿Alguna pregunta hasta ahora? Okay, todos seguimos en el mismo canal. Okay. So, here's the story about the character we're going to talk about. Yoga es un niño pequeño cuando va de viaje con su madre Natasha en un barco por las costas de Siberia. En un momento del viaje se produce una explosión en el barco y Yoga se va a la fuerza en un bote salvavidas con otros pasajeros mientras su madre se tiene que quedar en el barco, ya que no hay botes para todos. Yoga grita y llora mientras se aleja en el bote y ve cómo el barco en el que se ha quedado su madre se hunde en el fondo del océano frente a las costas de Siberia. Yoga is a young boy when he goes on a trip with his mother Natasha on a boat along the coast of Siberia. At one point during the trip, there is an explosion on the ship and Yoga is forced to board a lifeboat with other passengers, while his mother has to stay on the ship as there are not enough boats for everyone. Yoga screams and cries as he drifts away in the boat and watches as the ship his mother is on sinks to the bottom of the ocean of the coast of Siberia. So, después es acogido en la Fundación Kido en Japón, dirigida por Mitsumasa Kido, y empieza muy joven su entrenamiento para convertirse en caballero. Durante una noche de entrenamiento, todo el grupo es reunido por Tatsumi para sortear el campo de entrenamiento donde irán a realizar los próximos años de entrenamiento. Deben sacar el nombre de un lugar dentro de una caja. A Yoga le toca ir a Siberia y recuerda que allí es donde se hundió el barco en el que estaba su madre. He is taken in by Kido Foundation in Japan, run by Kitsuma Kido, and begins training at a very young age to become a knight. One night during training, Tatsumi gathers the whole group to draw lots for training camp where they will spend the next few years training. They must draw the name of the place, for inside a box, Yoga is assigned to go to Siberia. And he remembers that is where the ship carrying his mother's sank. Al llegar a Siberia conoce a su maestro Cristal y Isaac, otro niño que también está siendo entrenado para ser caballero por Cristal. Con él compartiría parte de sus entrenamientos. Upon arriving in Siberia, he meets his teacher Crystal and Isaac, another boy who was also being trained by the knight by Crystal, with whom he will share part of his training. So these are the two kids, and this is our main character. Yoga crece, logra aprender las técnicas de su maestro y con ellas rompe el hielo y baja al barco donde se encuentra su madre muerta. Yoga consigue llegar hasta la habitación donde está el cuerpo de su madre y al verla se pone a llorar. Yoga le pone en el pelo una flor que lleva en la boca y se pone a rezar a su lado. Yoga grows up and manages to learn his master's techniques and uses them to break the ice and descend to the ship where his dead mother lies. Yoga reaches the room where his mother's body is, and upon seeing her, begins to cry. Yoga places a flower he had been carrying on his mouth on her hair and begins to pray beside her. Entonces Yoga regresa a la Fundación Kido en Japón con la armadura de cisne. Después se encuentra luchando en las 12 casas custodiadas por los caballeros dorados para salvar a Athena. Y en estas circunstancias, Yoga se encuentra luchando contra el maestro de su maestro. Then Yoga returns to the Kido Foundation in Japan with his swan armor. Then finds himself fighting in the 12 houses, guarded by the Golden Knights to save Athena. And in these circumstances, Yoga finds himself fighting against his master's master. ¿Alguna pregunta hasta ahora? Any questions so far about the story?
Pretty straightforward, it seems.
Awesome. Okay. Regresemos al canal. So here is the story we came for. Camus versus Yoga. So that's what I gave you, the whole backstory about this character. And here we're going to start the actual story plot that I wanted to discuss about today. Cuando Yoga se despierta, ve unos pilares y muros, lo que le hace pensar que está en una de las 12 casas del zodiaco. Entonces aparece un caballero de oro que le reconoce. Yoga reconoce a la armadura de oro de Acuario, portada por Camus, y ambos reconocen tener información sobre el otro. When Yoga wakes up, he sees some pillars and walls which make him think he is on one of the 12 houses of the zodiac. Then a golden knight appears and recognizes him. Yoga recognizes the golden Aquarius armor worn by Camus, and both acknowledge having information about each other. Yoga recuerda cómo Cristal le habló de Camus, de Acuario, su maestro. Yoga cree estar en la casa de Acuario, pero Camus le dice que está en la casa de Libra. Yoga le dice que debería proteger a esa casa el maestro de Shiryu, quien es otro caballero de oro. Camus le dice que así es, pero que está ausente. Yoga remembers how Crystal told him about Camus of Aquarius, his teacher. Yoga believes he is in the house of Aquarius, but Camus tells him that they are in the house of Libra. Yoga tells him that Shiryu's teacher, who is another golden knight, should protect that house. Camus tells him that it is, but that he is absent. Camus le pide a Yoga que abandone el santuario y que llegaría incluso a usar la fuerza para echarle. Pero Yoga le dice que no puede abandonar el santuario. Entonces Camus ataca a Yoga haciéndole chocar contra uno de los pilares de la casa. Camus asks Yoga to leave the sanctuary and will even use force to throw him out. But Yoga tells him that he cannot abandon the sanctuary. Then Camus attacks Yoga, making him crash into one of the pillars of the house. Yoga le pregunta por qué no le deja pasar, pero Camus no le contesta y le sigue atacando, dándole a Yoga una patada cuando estaba en el suelo y después volviéndole a lanzar contra un pilar. Camus vuelve a insistirle a Yoga que se retire, pero Yoga sigue contestando lo mismo y Camus le dice que luche porque no le dejará pasar. Yoga asks him why he doesn't let him pass, but Camus doesn't answer and continues attacking him, kicking Yoga when he was on the ground and then throwing him against a pillar again. Camus again insists that Yoga leave, but Yoga continues to answer the same thing, and Camus tells him to fight because he would not let him pass. Yoga le dice que luchar contra el maestro de su maestro sería un sacrilegio. Camus le dice que es por miedo. Entonces Yoga le dice a Camus que él mismo fue el que mató a Cristal. Yoga dice que la muerte de Cristal es por culpa del patriarca, quien lo controlaba con una técnica. Pero Camus dice que a él solo le importa saber si abandonará esa casa o combatirá. Yoga tells him that fighting his master's master would be a sacrilege. Camus tells him that it is because of fear. Then Yoga tells Camus that he himself was the one who killed Crystal. Yoga says that Crystal's death is the fault of the patriarch who controlled him with a technique. But Camus says that he only cares about knowing if he will leave that house or fight. Camus dice que Cristal murió porque era todo menos un verdadero caballero. Esas palabras hacen enfurecer a Yoga y le animan a luchar. Camus dice que antes de luchar quiere enseñar algo y lanza un rayo rompiendo parte del techo y luego rebotando en el espacio en la constelación de Acuario para llegar a Siberia y golpear contra el barco donde está el cuerpo de la madre de Yoga. Camus says that Crystal died because he was anything but a true knight. Those words make Yoga angry and encourage him to fight. Camus says that before fighting, he wants to show him something and launches a lightning bolt, breaking part of the ceiling and then bouncing off into space into the constellation of Aquarius to reach Siberia and hit the ship where the body of Yoga's mother is. So it's more like a bouncing ball, or what you call it, those machines. Pew, pew, pew. El barco se hunde en el fondo del mar para desesperación de Yoga, que no comprende por qué Camus hizo eso. Camus le responde a Yoga que tiene que aprender a desprenderse del pasado. Yoga ataca a Camus con el polvo de diamante, pero Camus para el ataque con una sola mano para sorpresa de Yoga. Camus le dice que el polvo de diamantes no tiene secretos para él. The ship sinks to the bottom of the sea, to the despair of Yoga, who doesn't understand why Camus did that. Camus responds to Yoga that he has to learn to let go of the past. Yoga attacks Camus with diamond dust, but Camus parries the attack with one hand, to Yoga's surprise. Camus tells him that diamond dust has no secrets for him. Yoga continúa atacando a Camus, pero el resultado no cambia. Camus le explica a Yoga que el cariño que tiene a su madre y el odio que esos momentos tiene contra él le impiden alcanzar el séptimo sentido. Yoga continues attacking Camus, but the result does not change. Camus explains to Yoga that the love he has for his mother and the hatred he currently has against him prevents him from reaching the seventh sense. Yoga recuerda las palabras de Mu, de Aries, otro caballero de oro, sobre el séptimo sentido, el cosmos definitivo, sentido que se logra mediante el entendimiento íntegro y entero del cuerpo y la fuerza de uno mismo, a la vez que se ha entrenado el manejo del cosmos. Es el cosmos verdadero en todo su esplendor y que sin él no tiene opción de vencer a los caballeros de oro. Yoga comprende que todo lo que hace Camus es una prueba para alcanzar el séptimo sentido. Camus le dice que mientras no deje esos sentimientos, no lo podrá hacer. Yoga se niega a olvidar los recuerdos de su madre. Yoga remembers the words of Mu of Aries, another golden knight, about the seventh sense, the ultimate cosmos, sense that is achieved through the integral and complete understanding of the body and the strength of oneself while having trained in the management of the cosmos. It is the true cosmos in all its splendor, and without it, they have no option to defeat the Golden Knights. Yoga understands that everything that Camus does to him is a test to achieve the seventh sense. Camus tells him that as long as he doesn't let go of those feelings, he will not be able to do it. Yoga refuses to forget the memories of his mother. Yoga ve como Camus se coloca en una posición de combate que no había visto antes y como forma una jarra con las manos, con los brazos. Camus ataca a Yoga con la ejecución de Aurora, dejando a Yoga inconsciente, casi muerto. Camus encierra el cuerpo de Yoga en un ataúd de hielo, dejándolo en la casa de Libra. Yoga watches as Camus gets into a combat stance he has not seen before and forms a jug with his arms. Camus attacks Yoga with the Aurora execution, leaving Yoga unconscious, almost dead. Camus locks Yoga's body in an ice coffin, leaving him in the house of Libra. So here is the coffin he enclosed the warrior in. Pasan horas y los amigos de Yoga llegan, lo liberan del hielo y logran resucitar. Luego los alcanza en otra casa para ayudarlos a derrotar a otro caballero dorado, lo cual no logra, pero sí logra avanzar, dado que ese caballero vio potencial en Yoga. A few hours pass. Yoga's friends arrive, free him from the ice, and resurrect him. Then he reaches them in another house to help them defeat another Golden Knight, which he fails to do. But he does manage to advance, since that knight saw potential in Yoga. Casas después, Yoga se encuentra con Camus para pelear por última vez. Yoga ataca y, como previos ataques, es inútil. Camus le enseña a Yoga que el cero absoluto es el soplo glaciar supremo, capaz de interrumpir cualquier forma de vida. Camus vuelve a encerrar a Yoga en el ataúd de hielo, pero esta vez Yoga consigue romperlo desde dentro. Enrabietado por el sacrificio de Shun, fue quien lo ayudó a regresar a la vida a la vez que lo congelaron, ante la sorpresa de Camus. Houses later, Yoga meets Camus to fight one last time. Yoga attacks, and like previous attacks, is useless. Camus teaches Yoga that absolute zero is the supreme glacier blast, capable of interrupting any form of life. Camus once again locks Yoga in an ice coffin, but this time Yoga manages to break it from within. Enraged by Shun's sacrifice, he was one of the other people who helped him get from the previous frozen coffin, to Camus' surprise. Yoga después consigue parar un ataque de Camus con las manos, a pesar de que se destruye la mayoría de su armadura debido al frío. Entonces Yoga lanza toda la energía contenida en el soplo contra Camus, quien derriba y le saca el casco. Camus se da cuenta que ese ataque ha congelado una pequeña parte de su armadura. Yoga later manages to parry an attack from Camus with his hands, even though most of his armor is destroyed due to the cold. Then Yoga launches all the energy contained in the cold wind against Camus, who he knocks down and takes off his helmet. Camus realizes that this attack has frozen a small part of his armor. Camus se dispone a atacar a Yoga con la ejecución de Aurora y se da cuenta que Yoga también está en la misma posición para lanzar también la ejecución de Aurora, a pesar de que nunca ha usado esa técnica. Entonces ambos se atacan mutuamente con la ejecución de Aurora. Camus prepares to attack Yoga with the Aurora execution and realizes that Yoga is also in the position to cast the Aurora's execution as well, even though he has never used that technique. Then they both attack each other with the Aurora execution. So here's the drawing. It's not from the same cartoon, which is the only one that I found that has good enough quality. This is 90s, I think. So, la casa de Acuario y los dos quedan completamente helados debido al choque de sus ataques. Camus elogia a Yoga por lo que acaba de hacer, reconociendo que le ha superado y aceptando que Yoga defendía a la verdadera Atena. Camus se despide de Yoga, cayendo muerto al suelo. Yoga comienza a llorar, agradecido a Camus lo que ha hecho por él y por las enseñanzas que le ha transmitido. The house of Aquarius and the two of them are completely frozen due to the clash of their attacks. Camus praises Yoga for what he has just done, acknowledging that he has surpassed him and accepting that Yoga was defending the true Athena. Camus says goodbye to Yoga, falling dead to the ground. Yoga begins to cry, thanking Camus for what he has done for him and for the teachings he has transmitted to him. So that's the ending of that fight. So far, algunas preguntas, respuestas, pensamientos acerca de esta pelea. Any questions, thoughts on this scene or story arc?
I just have the Caballeros del Zodiaco theme song playing in my head.
Right. Which one? The Spanish or the other one?
The Spanish one.
Que salió una en México, pero la usaron de España y otros países les tocó la otra, que se me hace más chafa, pero a muchos les gustó.
Grisel wrote in the chat, it's a fight within oneself.
Yes, in a way, yeah, definitely.
Good metaphor. Yeah. It's definitely the hero's journey, Mary.
There you go, Mary. Yeah, it's kind of a hero's journey, right? It's a journey of growth, if you think about it.
Yeah, definitely that.
Growth, maturity from within. Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I really enjoy about this specific arc. Is like there's a lot of characters on this thing, and again, I went as fast as I could through the whole story, but I think all of them had that kind of like little teachings of how to become better, and not just in the sense of physical strength, because here the teacher is more teaching him, because Yoga lost his mother when he was a baby, so he never understood to let go of that, which his mother is dead, but he was trying to learn the power to go into the eyes and see her as she was alive, but he never gave that, like la pelea to learn how to let go of that. And the teacher is telling him, like, this is what you have to let go, because you are still carrying the death of your mother. You haven't reached that level of maturity to know that she's gone. He still thinks she's alive. and it's fine, but he's trying to tell him like you need to let go those irrational feelings to reach a sense of level or cool level head, so you don't rush through things, because in most of the fights he just goes ahead and thinks he's strong and everything, but he doesn't stops and thinks about his feelings before acting. So, ¿alguna pregunta más? ¿Algo más que quiera hablar de este personaje? Yeah, I know it's not the best psychology for like this is violent psychology, but it is kind of a reaction of like the times, like be strong and like macho teaching.
But with magnificent hair.
Oh damn, yeah. Looking straight.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, I'm gonna leave you to that, and you can watch the anime if you guys want. Ejercicio. Quiero que tomen un tiempo y piensen. ¿Qué lección les gustaría enseñar a un alumno, a una hija, a un amigo, etcétera? ¿A quién? Te toca decidir a ti. Escríbelo. So write it down, right? Exercise. I want you to take some time and think, what lesson would I want to teach to a student, a daughter, a friend, etc.? The who, it is up to you. So write it down. So I'm gonna give you like 2-3 minutes. You don't have to go into detail, but I want you to think what you want to teach. Quiero que tomen un poquito de tiempo, 2-3 minutos, y en eso escriban. No tiene que ser específico, o sea, no tienen que entrar mucho en detalles, solamente piensen lo que quisieran enseñar y de ahí partimos. Okay?
Yeah, Mary added in the chat. That explains a lot. Sometimes I didn't know why he was fighting. Yeah, the plot line of the anime, and I'm assuming the manga too, is that the characters are mystical knights that are fighting to save the true ruler of the constellations. And part of the reason for the fights is to basically reach the usurper, the person that took the sort of ruling crown for himself, and to return it to the rightful heir to the kingdom of the constellations, to the heavens. And that's the general plot of the story. And then, as Abraham said, there's a lot of characters that we follow in that anime, and the character Yoga is one of them. And that particular storyline is about him learning to become more level-headed, less, I guess, sentimental.
Impulsive, yeah.
Impulsive, yeah.
When you let your emotions take control of you,
yeah.
That was the teaching he wants to show him. Because through the whole story, he's just trying to reach his mother, and his mother is gone. So he's telling him, like, you had to learn how to let her go. And he couldn't. That's why he got frozen the first time, the second time. And even after this fight, he still takes some time. But is getting there. So they have different arcs, different stories, and every character has their own. Because in reality, it's not about too much about the fighting. If you think about it, it's about the lessons all these characters are learning throughout.
So Tauri in the chat is asking if you can provide an example of how to do the exercise.
Yeah, quick one. I mean, just for this one, it will be the lesson will be to let go of your emotions, to let them stop you from acting rationally. But you can say oh, okay, a lesson for your kids, save your money. It can be as mundane as that, or to study or something like that. It's up to you what kind of lesson you want to give either your student, your friend, your teacher. Okay, you can tell your friend, hey, you should stop dating those people. You're getting toxic people in your life, But again, don't go too much into detail. That we're gonna lead to that later. Just want you to get a notion of what the lesson you wanna be teaching. Again, it's up to you who's the person taking the lesson and what lesson, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for also giving your examples, Grisel, in the chat. Grisel wrote resiliencia, impulsividad. resilience, and impulsivity.
Yes.
Those would be some examples
Yeah.
of, I guess, lessons to teach someone.
Yes, and especially like they use it a lot here. Resilience is one of the main ones for this story, because these guys, they've been trash and still moving. Ese es Seiya. Seiya es el que realmente se lleva el título de resiliencia.
Yeah.
That would never stop.
Yeah, in English, the remake of Los Caballeros del Zodiaco, it's called Saint Seiya.
Yes, Saint Seiya también es en español, pero como a nosotros nos tocó el de España, la traducción de España, por eso le llaman Caballeros del Zodiaco, which I like more. But...
I thought it was badass.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess maybe another way to answer Tauri's question for anyone that's kind of struggling, think of it as like a character trait that you want a person to learn.
That can work too. Luis, give us what lesson would you like to teach? I don't know, either your kid, your dog, or your, I don't know, me. What lesson would you teach me?
I mean, can't think of anything for you specifically. Or
Probably just put examples.
Yeah. But like, you know, if I were to think of like my sister who I helped raise, you know, for me it was very important that she be independent.
Independence.
You know, so independence, to be self-sufficient. Eso es algo para mí que es muy importante.
Excellent. Buen ejemplo. Excellent example, because that's something that really, like, we're thinking. So it's just simple. You don't have to go to the specifics yet. I just want you to flesh some idea of what you want to teach.
La humildad, la paciencia. Thank you, Grisel.
Gracias.
So I hope that helps.
Okie dokies. Excelente. Okay, so here we go. Today we're going to be talking about prosa y verso libre. Prosa, prose and free verse. We probably have talked about these before, and most of you have probably even used them or know about them. But I was thinking, like, for people who are watching us on YouTube or for the new recruits that we have, it will be a nice thing to cover. So with that being said, what these things are. Prosa está escrito en oración y párrafos, siguiendo reglas gramáticas y de puntuación convencionales. Suelen ser más sencillo en términos de estructura. So prose is written in a sentence and paragraph following conventional grammar and punctuation rules. It is typically more straightforward in terms of structure. So, ¿alguna pregunta sobre prosa? Any questions about prose? I think we have something on the chat. Do you want to read that, Luis?
Yeah, Tauri offered an example of a lesson that he would want to teach, which is to care for nature and the environment, because it is the foundation of all life. Respect for all life, human and non-human alike, and to care for all life, even as tiny as microorganisms, because they help trees and plants help us breathe. Definitely agree with that one.
Excellent.
And River added in the chat, prose verse is so hard to strike a balance between being super weird, how I do it, and not just being a non-fiction paragraph. It takes some work.
Thank you, River. Glad you wanna. I see where your assignment is gonna be, River. Excellent. Yeah. So, again, any questions about prosa? Una pregunta sobre prosa? We'll get into free verse later, but just because of this one. Okay. Nobody?
Another way to think of prose, if it's a little confusing, is just everyday average writing, the way that we write in every circumstance.
I know, because like you have seen people texting. So it's more like, if you think about when you were doing your classes in high school or college, a kind of essay, kind of like structure of the paragraphs and the lines and the punctuations, is that kind of style, if you think about it.
Yeah, standardized.
Yeah. And I disagree when they say, like, in terms of structure, it's easy. It's not. It's just because you already know it. That's why it's easy. Because construct the language it's hard to put into like all these rules. It's hard when you're learning it, but since everybody already uses that, it's easy if you want to write a poem in that kind of style. There you go. You're getting ahead, River, but we're getting there. So for this, I'm gonna need people to help me. Para esto necesito que alguien me ayude porque vamos a usar el ejemplo que les traje para prosa. Alguien que lo pueda leer en español and later we're gonna read it in English, okay? So just for time's sake, alguien que se lo quiera echar en español. Venga, tira los dados.
Grisel, raise your hand.
Okay, Grisel, go for it.
Wait, is that the title? Lugares con Wi-Fi?
Mhm.
Okay. Lugares con
Sí.
Wi-Fi, terrible. Por J. Stanislo López.
Mhm.
El jardín de Edén, las tumbas de mis antepasados, un campo de sandías en el centro de Texas, donde una vez durmió mi padre. Millas de ríos, la sala de espera de un hospital en la que un médico de aspecto delgado con su bata compartió resultados mixtos. Una guardia de gusanos bajo la hierba helada, la tumba de Jesús, los tramos de carretera en el largo camino a casa después del entierro, el abismo figurativo, los cielos literales, la habitación de motel barato en la que pensé en rezar a pesar de mi incredulidad. Lo que pensé que era una voz era simplemente una grabación reproducida desde otra habitación. El ático desordenado, la mayor parte del pasado, un futuro muy lejano, donde el hombre no es más que un estrato más bajo de la tierra. El relato de Megiddo, la casa inundada y la calcinada, mi cementerio favorito, donde puedo tocar el ruido blanco que distorsiona la memoria, que es estático sino el sonido del dolor del universo. En cualquier lugar reina la estática.
Really mentioned. So now somebody can read English, please.
Okay. Places with terrible Wi-Fi. The Garden of Eden, my ancestors' grave. A watermelon field in central Texas where my father once slept. Miles of rivers. The waiting room of a hospital in which a doctor, thin-looking in his coat, shared mixed results. A den of worms beneath the frozen grass. Jesus' tomb. The stretches of highway on the long drive home after burial. The figurative abyss. The literal heavens. The cheap motel room in which I thought about praying despite my disbelief. What I thought was a voice was simply a recording playing from another room. The cluttered attic, most of the past, the distant future, where a man is just another stratum in the ground. The tell of Megiddo, the flooded house and the scorched one. My favorite cemetery, where I can touch the white noise distorting memory. What is static, if not the sound of the universe's grief? Anywhere, static reigns.
Thank you very much. And so as you can see, this is a prose poem. You can see the structure. It's like a big paragraph if you think about it. But regular punctuations, just maybe the storyline feels a little, esoteric, or I don't know, like some parts. But that's kind of the style, right? The structure of it. La estructura es así como un parágrafo y tiene sus puntuaciones normales y se ve como un escrito normal, pero ya cuando te pones a ver un poco de licencia literaria, como dice las cosas o como hace que leas, es como lo hace más como poema, ¿verdad? And there you go. That's prose. And now let's move into verso libre. Esta forma de poesía no se adhiere a una métrica o esquema de rima específico. Permite longitudes de líneas y saltos variados, creando una forma visualmente más dinámica. Free verse. This form of poetry does not adhere to a specific meter or rhyme scheme. It allows for variety of lines, lengths, and breaks, creating a more visually dynamic format. So, ¿alguna pregunta sobre verso libre? Any questions about free verse? Okay, for now, I'm gonna leave it as that. And after the example, if you have more questions, we'll get into it, okay? So I think you have probably all used this. And this is kind of the ones that I love. So my main style. So, alguien que pueda leerlos en español, riesgo, por favor. Después we'll move into English later.
I can do it. Riesgo. Y entonces llegó el día cuando el riesgo para permanecer apretado en un capullo fue más doloroso que el riesgo que tomó para florecer.
Thank you very much. Muchas gracias. And let's go to the English version. ¿Quién se la avienta? Anybody wants to read the English version, please?
I'll do it.
Thank you. Who's this?
Luz.
Oh, thank you, Lucy.
Risk. Anais Nin. And then came the day when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom.
Thank you very much. And as you can see, this is different than the other. Like the other one is the type of writing that we usually use, like Luis said. But here you can see it's being cut in here, going there. And also it doesn't have a specific type of rhyme or scheme of rhythm. So that's kind of the play of almost like do whatever you want with it. Como les decía, no es como escribimos normalmente. Están cortadas las líneas, las puntuaciones no son siempre donde deben de estar y no tienen una rima específica o un ritmo específico. So, casi que puedes usar lo que quieras para usar este estilo de escritura poética. Más que nada es el tipo de estructura en este caso. Any questions so far? ¿Alguna pregunta sobre verso libre o free verse? Everybody, he's a master and I like it. There you go. So with that being said, I want somebody to read this in Spanish and then in English. So, ¿quién se la avienta?
I'll read it.
Do you want to do the Spanish or the English?
I'll do the Spanish, yeah.
Excellent.
Cisne quiere volar hasta la constelación de Acuario. Sin embargo, te aferras a lo que está debajo del hielo, que es congelado, muerto. No te pido que olvides o que dejes de sentir, pero sí que no dejes que la pérdida, la ira y la euforia te derritan. En el vuelo de la vida, las emociones sin control son como corrientes árticas que pueden derribar tu ascenso cósmico. Cisne, sé firme como el hielo, no para endurecer tu corazón, sino para enfriarlo y que la ira, el miedo y la pérdida no te cieguen. Wow. Okay.
Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
Abraham, I'll read that second. The next one.
Okay, Dr. Rossi, excellent. And then we can discuss about it later. Okay, bye.
Okay, Swan, you want to fly to the constellations of Aquarius. However, you cling to what is under the ice, that which is frozen, dead. I'm not asking you to forget or stop feeling, but I'm asking you to not let the loss, the anger, and the euphoria melt you. In the flight of life, uncontrolled emotions are like Arctic currents that can knock down your cosmic rise. Swan, be firm as ice, not to harden your heart, but to cool it so that anger, fear, and loss do not blind you.
Thank you very much. Any takes on this? ¿Qué piensan acerca de esta pieza? Sobre todo leyendo lo que leímos. Any takes on this poem? And what style do you think it was written on? ¿Qué tipo de estilo se usó para escribir este poema?
Prose.
There you go. You're right. Prose. There you go.
I kind of have a question for everyone. Considering the fact that we had all the background, of Los Caballeros del Zodiaco, and, we understand that this is referencing that. If you were to now imagine that you didn't have all of that background, what would this particular prose poem say to you? River added in the chat, by the way, that I like how it starts with Cisne and ends with Ciegen. It's got that sound connection. Yeah, it's a nice touch. And it's all right, I guess, if you weren't able to catch all of the background, River, maybe that might help you answer the question that I asked. Without all of that background of the anime, how does this poem, this prose poem, hit you? How does it, make you feel? Or what do you get from it? River was seeing it as a lesson. Yeah.
Well, I just reading this last poem or prose poem, it reminded me of the fact that in psychology there's this emotions iceberg, where below is all your fears, your stress, all the things that you've gone through, and above the iceberg is where you're showing your emotions, whether they're without thinking, the anger emotions, your behaviors and all that. So that right away reminded me of that emotions of iceberg, the iceberg emotions.
I love that.
Grisel puso en el chat que no nos olvidemos de dónde venimos, pero que seamos fuertes ante todo. And River also wrote, I was seeing it as struggle. Yeah.
I'm glad that you put that on, Luis, because when I wrote it, I was thinking I wanted to definitely pay tribute to the story, but I wanted to make a poem that was legible for people who doesn't know what the story is about. Because I think that just the message still runs through, right? Like all these teachings, like River said.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, with that being said, just to continue, I got you what you came for. Tarea, homework. Volvamos al ejercicio que hicimos. La lección que tienes en mente. Ahora conviértela en un poema. Puede ser prosa o verso libre. Te sugiero usar el que normalmente no usas. Y si puedes, usa el pájaro y las constelaciones como metáfora. Homework. Back to the exercise we did. And that's the exercise where I ask you what kind of lesson you wanted to teach. The lesson you have in mind, now turn it into a poem. It could be prose or free verse. I suggest using the one you not normally use. For example, me, I use a lot of free verse because I love the freedom of all that, but I wanted to go into prose to create this poem that we just read. And if you can, use the bird and the constellations as your metaphor. And that's so we keep to the theme of this teaching series is what we're doing. So, any questions about the homework? ¿Alguna pregunta sobre la tarea?
Or any questions about prose poetry versus free verse? went a little quickly through that, so I want to make sure that
Mhm.
all of you have an opportunity to ask a question if you have one.
And here we go. This is the free verse, and this is the prose.
River wrote in the chat, it's mostly about using line breaks and not using line breaks and not sticking to a prescribed rhyming scheme. Basically, the thing that distinguishes prose poetry from other forms of poetry is the fact that it is written in prose format. But if you notice, can you scroll the page up just a little bit, Abraham?
Yep.
Para ver el poema. So if you notice, you know, the lines themselves, right? The single sentences, el jardín del Edén, las tumbas de mis antepasados. They're phrases, they're not complete sentences. So prose poetry uses what is similar in poetry in that way. It's just written in prose format.
So I think also she's also referring to free verse, like with his rhyme schemes and all that stuff. Yeah, free verse, you don't really need to follow any of that. You can have elements of different ones. Some rhymes here, some rhythm here that you're, but not all. It's as legible or as you cannot like pinpoint. Oh, this is this kind of structure.
Which poem are you referring to, Dauri? Which one was written in English or Spanish?
Which one? The one we're looking at? This one?
Mm-hmm.
This one was written in English.
Yeah. I believe they were both written in English. Well,
yes.
Yeah. Anaïs
Except
Nin,
for the bottom one.
Yeah. Anaïs Nin is a French-born American writer, and Estanislao Lopez is an American-born writer as well. And just a quick little thing that I noticed about the Estanislao Lopez one, the Tell of Megiddo, every single version that I found writes it with Tell, like Tell. But when I looked to confirm the translation of Megiddo, I could only find Tell, Tel, Tel Megiddo, which is a location in Israel, from ancient.
It's where the Egyptian fight was taking place.
Yeah. So I think Estanislao Lopez may have misspelled that, but I don't know. Yeah, lugares con Wi-Fi. I mean, Estanislao Lopez wrote the original in English. Yeah. And I believe Abraham did our translation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. Both versions.
Yeah, they have. I think both of the poems work in both language, which usually is not the case, but this one they kind of work.
Which I think also goes to show kind of the versatility of prose poetry, because if you're writing in any language, your expectation of what prose does changes when it all of a sudden is a poem. Because again, if you look at the poem, it is not complete sentences every single time. It's fragments. Everything is either a very specific idea, a very concrete object, or it's a question. And so that's kind of a way that prose poetry distinguishes itself from just your everyday written prose language.
Yeah, sometimes it's a little bit tricky to say, oh, this is just a story or this is a poem. And usually it's just the way it's written, the context of it, how it is explaining. Like we said, like not everything is like a storyline thought through way of speaking, like the way we're talking about yoga and blah, blah, blah. Here is a little more, you're playing with these pictures here and there,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the title itself tells you everything you need to know about this. Right?
For example, static, he doesn't go into explain all that. It's more a theme, more of the ideas that he's putting out there.
Yeah, so prose poetry functions in that way, right? Where it is poetic, but uses the standardized structure of everyday language. Tauri wrote, in prose poetry and poetry grammar is sometimes thrown out the window, right? You get a past most times. I like the fragments. They're like unfinished thoughts or impulse thoughts. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's not as like set on stone, but you still have to have mostly punctuation and line and paragraph structure. It's more about the structure.
Yeah, it is. It's more about the structure. The grammar does play an important role when you're talking about how you want your audience to understand whatever you're communicating. So I wouldn't say that it goes completely out the window. Like if you still need to use a comma in order to signify that something is either a list or that something is maybe being modified by an adverb or an adjective, like those things still matter. You know, in that sense, grammar will always matter in writing, but the way in which you write it, the way you visually represent it, that can change. That can be fluid. That's where free verse really gives you a lot of flexibility, because free verse doesn't follow your standardized structures of language. Free verse has gives you the options to break lines where you think they work best. It gives you more flexibility in the way that you force your readers to interpret a single line. You know, that's where enjambment comes in. You can use blank spaces, which you can also use in prose poetry too, you know, to form the caesura or to do, you know, all sorts of other poetry techniques. But
yes. And again, just a simple way of going from like different structure styles for poetry. There's more things we'll probably cover later, like more about rhyme and rhythm. But here is the works cited for the work that we had today. And before we go, tengo pilón, un extra. Why not? So, Masami Kuramada nació 6 de diciembre de 1953. Kuramada nació en el barrio Tokioda de Chuku, en el seno de una familia muy humilde. Él mismo ha reconocido que fue un mal estudiante y que en su adolescencia llegó a coquetear con la delincuencia al punto que llegó a formar parte de varias bandas juveniles. Born December 6, 1953, Kurumadara was born in Tokyo neighborhood of Shohoku into a very humble family. He himself has acknowledged that he was a bad student and that in his adolescence he flirted with crime, and to the point that he became part of several youth gangs. El primer manga que leyó fue Astro Boy de Osamu Tezuka, pero ante todo se sintió influenciado por la manga de Hiroshi Motomiya. Este era un mangaka de unos orígenes parecidos a los suyos y sus obras describían un panorama social semejante al que él conocía. Empezó a dibujar de modo autodidacta, aunque no tenía ninguna esperanza de convertirse en autor. The first manga he read was Astro Boy by Osamu Tezuka, but about all he was influenced by the mangas of Hiroshi Motomiya. This was a mangaka with origins similar to his own, and his works describe a social panorama similar to the one he knew. He began to draw as self-taught artist, although he had no hope of becoming an author. A los 18 años, cuando se sentía muy desubicado y no sabía qué rumbo tomar con su vida, vio en un número de la revista Shonen Jump que se convocaba en un concurso para encontrar nuevos autores. Se armó de valor y envió una historia. no llegó a ganar, pero un editor se interesó por él e inició su aprendizaje en el mundo del manga como asistente de mangakas más expertos, como es habitual. At the age of 18, when he felt very out of place and he did not know what direction to take with his life, he saw in an issue of Shonen Jump magazine that a contest was being held to find new authors. He plucked out the courage and sent a story. He did not win, but an editor became interested in him and he began his apprenticeship in the world of manga as an assistant to more expert mangakas as is usual. Debutó en el Shonen Jump con una historia corta cómica. Sukeban Arashi no tardó en alcanzar el éxito con una obra ambientada en el mundo del boxeo, Ring ni Kakero, que se editó entre 1977 y 1981. He debuted in Shonen Jump with a comic story, Shukeban Arashi. He soon achieved success with a work set in the world of boxing, Ring ni Kakero, which was published between 1977 and 1981. Pero los éxitos previos de Kurumada quedaron opacados por el gigantesco impacto de Saint Seiya, más conocido en España como Los Caballeros del Zodiaco, publicado en 1985 y 1990, sus secuelas y sus sucesivas adaptaciones al anime. But Kurumada's previous successes were overshadowed by the gigantic impact of Saint Seiya, best known in Spain for Knights of the Zodiac, which is the story we talk about, published between 1985 and 1990, its sequels and its successive anime adaptations. So here is the guy who wrote the Caballeros del Zodiaco and some of his creations. So with that being said, good night, guys. Con eso les doy la despedida.
Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you being here. Como siempre les agradecemos mucho su asistencia aquí esta noche. The following week, next week, we will have, of course, our workshopping session. That's going to be also followed the following week as well. So 2 weeks of workshopping. Please remember to send us your work by Friday at the earliest possible, giving us enough time to be able to read it, think about it, give you good feedback. River, do you have a question or a comment?
I do have a question, and that is sometimes for people who write perhaps more wild work, other people might want a little more time with the work. And I was wondering, since now we're not sharing with the other classmates, is there a way that I could pre-send a link so that other people could have a little bit more time if they wanted to?
Yeah, if you're giving us permission to share it with everyone in the class, yeah, we can do that.
Okay, awesome.
So yeah, we will see you all next week again, for workshopping next week and the following week. And then we will be off on, I believe that will be 3 weeks from today for Veterans Day. So we look forward to seeing all the work that comes up. Que se la pasen muy bonito. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see y'all soon.